The buzzing of my phone at 3:17 a.m. should have been my first clue that something was very, very wrong. I rolled over in bed, squinting at the bright screen through half-closed eyes. 3 text alerts from my bank. Unusual activity notifications. I'd been getting a lot of those lately. Probably just the bank's overzealous fraud detection system acting up again. But something about the timing made me sit up and actually read them. Alert. Card transaction approved. $4,847.92 at Chanel Boutique, Paris. If this wasn't you, contact us immediately. Alert. Card transaction approved. $12,394.50 at Louis Vuitton, Paris. If this wasn't you, contact us immediately. Alert. Card transaction approved. $8,200 at Air France. Upgrade services. If this wasn't you, contact us immediately. Paris? I was in my bed in suburban Chicago. I hadn't been to Paris in my life. I glanced over at Jessica's side of the bed. Empty. The sheets were cold, like she'd been gone for hours. My heart started racing as I opened my banking app. What I saw made my blood run cold. Account balance, $847.23. Yesterday's balance had been $61,094.46. I scrolled through the transaction history with shaking fingers, watching $60,000 evaporate before my eyes in a series of purchases that painted a very clear picture. Air France, first-class ticket, $8,200. Charles de Gaulle Airport Lounge, $340. Chanel Boutique, multiple items, $4,847. Louis Vuitton, multiple items, $12,394. Hermès, scarf and accessories, $3,200. Le Meurice Hotel Paris, 7 nights, $9,800. Various luxury restaurants and spas, $21,413. The transactions were all from the past 18 hours, starting with the flight purchase yesterday afternoon while I was at work. I sat there in our bedroom, staring at my phone, trying to process what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I'd been married to for 8 years, had somehow accessed my bank account, drained our savings, and flown to Paris for a luxury shopping spree. But how? I'd never given her access to this account. The card was in my wallet, right there on my nightstand where I'd left it. Except it wasn't. I grabbed my wallet and flipped through it frantically. Credit cards, driver's license, insurance cards, but no debit card for my main checking account. Then I remembered. 2 nights ago, Jessica had brought me a glass of wine while I was paying bills online. She'd been unusually affectionate, massaging my shoulders while I worked, asking about my day. I'd fallen asleep at my desk that night, and she'd helped me to bed. She must have taken photos of my card, memorized the numbers, maybe even used my sleeping thumb for the mobile app if she was really clever about it. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with everything, had robbed me blind and fled to Europe. I called the bank immediately. First National Bank Fraud Department, this is Michael speaking. This is David Chen, account number 84729411156. I need to report unauthorized transactions on my account. I see you've had several high-value transactions in Paris today, Mr. Chen. Were these not authorized by you? Absolutely not. I'm in Chicago. Someone stole my card information and is using it in France. I understand your concern, sir. Let me pull up your account details. I see the card being used is registered under the name Jessica Chen. Is that your wife? My stomach dropped. Yes, but she doesn't have authorization to use that account. Sir, according to our records, Jessica Chen was added as an authorized user on this account 3 months ago. She has her own card linked to the account. That's impossible. I never authorized that. Let me check the paperwork. I see the authorization was added online using your login credentials and verified with your registered phone number. I closed my eyes, remembering 3 months ago when Jessica had borrowed my phone because hers was dead, right around the time I'd been having issues with the banking app. She must have used my phone to add herself to the account while I was in the shower. Sir, since she's an authorized user, these transactions are technically legal. However, if you'd like to dispute them or remove her authorization, we can help you with that process. Remove her immediately and freeze the account. Done. The account is now frozen, and Jessica Chen has been removed as an authorized user. However, sir, I should mention that there was another transaction that just processed. A charge for 15,000 euros at Cartier. Another $15,000. Gone. Mr. Chen, are you there? I'm here. What's the total damage? From the past 18 hours, I'm showing $74,394.67 in transactions. $74,000. Our entire savings, plus overdraft fees. What are my options for getting this money back? Well, since the transactions were made by an authorized user, it's not technically fraud. This would be more of a domestic dispute. You'd need to work this out with your wife directly or through legal channels. Legal channels? Divorce court, sir. Or you could file a police report for theft, but since she was an authorized user, that might be difficult to prove. I hung up the phone and sat in the dark for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. Jessica had been planning this for months. She'd secretly added herself to my account, waited for the right moment, and then cleaned me out while I slept. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was the betrayal, the calculation, the months of planning while she smiled at me over breakfast and kissed me goodnight. But as I sat there in the dark, something else started to dawn on me. Something that made me smile for the first time since I'd woken up. Jessica thought she was smart. She thought she'd pulled off the perfect crime. She had no idea what was coming next. 3 months earlier, I'd started noticing changes in Jessica that should have been red flags. It started with Instagram. She'd always been on social media, but suddenly she was spending hours scrolling through luxury lifestyle accounts, saving posts about designer handbags and 5-star resorts. She'd show me her phone constantly. Look at this hotel in the Maldives. Isn't it gorgeous? This influencer just bought a Birkin bag. Can you believe how much these cost? Check out this girl's closet. She has more shoes than some stores. At first, I thought it was harmless window shopping. Everyone fantasizes about a different life sometimes. But Jessica's fascination with luxury became an obsession. She started making comments about our modest lifestyle. Our 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood became cramped. Our Honda Accord became embarrassing. Our vacation to the Wisconsin Dells became pathetic compared to what other people our age are doing. David, we're 32 years old. Shouldn't we be living better than this? Jess, we're doing fine. We have a nice house, good jobs, savings in the bank. Savings we never spend on anything fun. What's the point of having money if you never enjoy it? We enjoy it. We went out to dinner last weekend. Applebee's doesn't count as enjoying money, David. The conversations always ended the same way, with Jessica frustrated by my financial anxiety, and me confused by her sudden dissatisfaction with a life that had made her happy for 8 years. But the real turning point came when her college friend Miranda visited us in February. Miranda had married a tech executive and lived in San Francisco. She showed up to our house wearing clothes that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage, carrying a purse that I later learned was worth $12,000. "Oh my God, Jess, your house is so cute," Miranda gushed, in the tone people use when they're trying to be nice about something small and disappointing. For 3 days, Miranda regaled us with stories about her life. The penthouse apartment with a view of the bay, the weekend trips to Napa Valley, the personal trainer and weekly spa appointments, the closet full of designer clothes. "You should come visit us in San Francisco," Miranda told Jessica. "I'll take you shopping on Union Square. You'd love the boutiques there." "I'd love to, but we're trying to save money right now," Jessica replied, shooting me a look that suggested this was somehow my fault. "Oh, that's smart. Building up your nest egg. Although, you can't take it with you, right? Mark always says life's too short not to enjoy the good things." After Miranda left, Jessica was different, distant, resentful. Do you know how embarrassing it was to have to explain why we drive a Honda Accord? Why we shop at Target? Why we've never been to Europe? Jess, there's nothing embarrassing about being financially responsible. There's nothing responsible about being cheap, David. I'm not cheap. I'm careful. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, careful looks a lot like scared. Scared of what? Scared of actually living. Scared of taking risks. Scared of enjoying the money we work so hard for. Jessica, we have goals. The house will be paid off in 10 years. We're saving for retirement. We have an emergency fund. Goals, goals, goals. What about dreams, David? What about experiences? What about living while we're young enough to enjoy it? But it wasn't just about money. Jessica started working out obsessively, buying expensive skincare products, getting her hair done weekly. She claimed she was investing in herself, but it felt more like she was preparing for something. She became secretive about her phone, angling it away from me when she was texting. She started staying late at work more often, going out with colleagues I'd never met. When I asked about her days, her answers became vague. How was work? Fine. What did you do tonight? Just hung out with some people from the office? Anyone I know? I don't think so. I started to suspect she was having an affair. The signs were all there. The secrecy, the new attention to her appearance, the emotional distance. But when I tried to talk to her about it, she'd deflect. David, you're being paranoid. Just because I have a life outside this house doesn't mean I'm cheating on you. I never said you were cheating. You didn't have to say it. It's written all over your face. Jessica, I just feel like we're not connecting anymore. Like you're not happy. I'm not happy, David. But not because of another man. I'm not happy because I feel trapped in a life that's going nowhere. Our life is going somewhere. We're building something together. We're building a prison of your financial anxiety. That conversation happened 2 weeks before she cleaned out my bank account. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there, but I was so focused on trying to save our marriage that I missed the fact that Jessica wasn't trying to save anything. She was planning her escape, and she'd decided to fund it with my money. What Jessica didn't know was that I'd been expecting something like this for weeks. It wasn't the affair I'd been worried about. It was something else. Call it intuition. Call it paranoia. But something about Jessica's behavior had made me start taking precautions. 3 months ago, right around the time she'd added herself to my account without my knowledge, I'd done something she had no idea about. I'd opened a decoy account. It started as basic financial planning. I'd been reading about identity theft and account security, and one article had mentioned the strategy of keeping a sacrifice account. A checking account with limited funds that you could use for online purchases or situations where your card information might be compromised. But as Jessica's behavior became more erratic and secretive, I'd turned the sacrifice account into something more strategic. I'd moved our real savings, about $45,000, into a new account at a different bank, an account Jessica knew nothing about. Then I'd left just enough money in the old account to make it look like our normal checking account balance. The account Jessica had drained? It was designed to be drained. I'd even helped the process along. When Jessica had added herself as an authorized user, I'd gotten the notification on my phone. But instead of confronting her about it, I'd done something more clever. I'd started documenting everything. Screenshots of her adding herself to the account. Records of her accessing my phone and computer. Photos of her taking my wallet into the bathroom. Videos of her looking through my desk when she thought I was asleep. For 2 months, I'd been building a case against my own wife. I'd also been working with a divorce attorney. Not because I wanted a divorce, but because I wanted to understand my options if Jessica's behavior escalated. David, what you're describing sounds like financial abuse, Attorney Sarah Mitchell had told me during our consultation. The secretive behavior, the unauthorized access to accounts, the emotional manipulation around money, these are all red flags. But what can I do about it? She's my wife. Marriage doesn't give someone the right to steal from you. If she takes money without permission, that's theft, regardless of your relationship status. How would I prove that? Documentation. If you suspect she's planning something, start keeping records. Screenshots, photos, written logs of conversations about money. That feels like I'm preparing for war. David, it sounds like the war has already started. You're just deciding whether to fight back. So I'd prepared. Not for war, exactly, but for the possibility that the woman I'd married might not be the person I thought she was. The decoy account was the final piece of the puzzle. I'd set it up so that it looked like our main savings account. Same bank, similar account number, connected to a debit card that I'd deliberately left accessible. I'd even made sure the account had enough money to fund a significant shopping spree, about $60,000, just enough to make Jessica think she'd hit the jackpot. But here's what Jessica didn't know. The account was in her name. When she'd added herself as an authorized user to my original account, I'd used that as an opportunity to gradually transfer funds into an account that was officially hers. Legally, she was the primary account holder. I was just an authorized user. So when Jessica stole my money and flew to Paris, she was actually spending her own money from her own account. Money I'd been slowly moving into that account for months, creating a paper trail that showed I was being generous and supportive of her desire for financial independence. The real savings, the money we'd actually worked for and saved together, was safely in an account she didn't know existed. Jessica thought she'd robbed me blind. In reality, she'd robbed herself, and in doing so, she'd created a perfect legal record of theft, fraud, and financial deception. All I had to do was wait for her to come home and let her explain how she'd funded her European vacation. Jessica came home on a Tuesday afternoon, exactly 1 week after she'd cleaned out what she thought was my bank account. I'd spent the week preparing, not just emotionally, but strategically. I'd printed out every bank statement, every transaction record, every piece of documentation related to the money she'd spent. I'd organized it all into neat folders, like evidence for a trial. Because that's exactly what it was. I was sitting at our kitchen table when I heard her key in the front door. She walked in dragging 2 enormous suitcases and carrying shopping bags from stores I couldn't afford to window shop in. "David, I'm home." She sounded cheerful, energetic, like she'd just returned from a wonderful vacation rather than a crime spree. "How was your trip?" I called out, keeping my voice neutral. "Oh my God, it was incredible. Paris is even more beautiful than I imagined." She wheeled her suitcases into the living room and started unpacking her shopping bags on our couch. Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Hermès, Cartier, a parade of luxury brands that represented more money than most people make in a year. "Look at this," she said, pulling out a handbag that looked like it cost more than our car. "Isn't it gorgeous? And this scarf? It's Hermès, 100% silk. Feel how soft it is." I walked over and looked at the items spread across our couch. The tags were still on most of them, showing prices that made my stomach hurt. "Jess, how did you pay for all this?" "Oh, I used the emergency card you gave me. You know, for emergencies. The emergency card. That was rich." "This was an emergency?" "David, I've been so depressed lately. I needed to do something for myself, something to remind me that life can be beautiful and exciting." "So, you flew to Paris?" "I flew to Paris, and it was amazing. I stayed at Le Meurice. Do you know how exclusive that hotel is? I had afternoon tea at the Ritz. I took a private tour of the Louvre. I ate at restaurants that have Michelin stars." She was glowing, animated in a way I hadn't seen in months. The trip had clearly been everything she'd dreamed it would be. "The flight was incredible too," she continued. "I upgraded to first class at the last minute. David, do you know what first class on Air France is like? They have actual beds. And the food. Oh my God, the food. Sounds expensive. This upgrade was so worth it. I know you're probably worried about the money, but David, you can't put a price on experiences like this. This trip changed my life." She pulled out her phone and started showing me photos. Pictures of her in front of the Eiffel Tower wearing clothes I'd never seen before. Selfies from expensive restaurants with plates of food that looked like art. Videos from her hotel room showing a view of the Seine that probably cost $1,000 a night. "Look at this," she said, scrolling through her camera roll. "This is me getting a facial at the Guerlain Spa. And this is the champagne they served in first class. And this is my room at Le Meurice. Isn't it gorgeous?" I watched her scroll through a week's worth of luxury experiences, each one representing money we didn't actually have. "Jessica, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How much did all this cost?" "Oh, I don't know exactly. I didn't really keep track. But David, it doesn't matter. We work so hard, we deserve to enjoy life a little. We? You know what I mean. I work hard too. Jessica was a part-time administrative assistant at a dental office. She made about $18,000 a year. Jess, did you look at the account balance before you spent this money? Of course I did. There was plenty. How much is plenty? I don't know, like 60,000 or something. Way more than enough for one trip. She said it so casually, like $60,000 was pocket change. And how much do you think you spent? I don't know. Maybe 20,000? Maybe less? I looked at the receipts I could see sticking out of her shopping bags. A single dinner at one restaurant had cost 800 euros. The hotel alone was nearly $10,000. Jessica, I think you spent more than 20,000. Well, even if I did, we had the money. And David, this trip was such a good investment in our relationship. I feel like myself again. I feel happy and energized and ready to work on us. That's great, Jess. I even brought you something. She dug through one of her bags and pulled out a small box. It's a tie from Hermes. I thought of you when I saw it. I opened the box. Inside was a silk tie that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Thank you. It's beautiful. I'm so glad I did this, David. I know you were worried about me, about us, but this trip reminded me that life is supposed to be exciting. We don't have to live like we're poor just because we're careful with money. She was right about one thing. Life was about to get very exciting. Jessica, I'm glad you had a good time. The best time. And you know what? I think we should start planning our next trip. Maybe Italy this time, or Greece. I met some people in Paris who told me about this amazing hotel in Santorini. Jess, can we talk about the money situation for a minute? David, please don't ruin this with your financial anxiety. I'm still high from the most amazing week of my life. I just want to understand how you paid for everything. I told you, I used the card you gave me for emergencies. The card from my account? Yes, the card from your account. And you're sure it was my account? Of course I'm sure. David, why are you asking me all these questions? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Because I want to show you something. I handed Jessica my phone, showing her the account she thought she'd drained. This is my checking account, the one you said you used for your trip. Jessica looked at the screen, and I watched her face change from confusion to concern. David, this shows a balance of $60,000. I know. But I spent money from this account. A lot of money. No, you didn't. What do you mean I didn't? I used your card. You used a card, but not from this account. I pulled out another phone, a backup phone I'd bought specifically for this moment, and opened a different banking app. This is the account you actually used. Jessica stared at the screen. The account showed her name as the primary holder, with a current balance of negative $847.23. David, I don't understand. Whose account is this? It's your account, Jessica. My account? I don't have an account at this bank. Yes, you do. You opened it 3 months ago when you added yourself as an authorized user to my original account. Remember that day when you borrowed my phone because yours was dead? Jessica's face went white. David, I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You used my phone to add yourself to my account, but what you actually did was open a new account in your name. I'd been gradually transferring money into it for months, thinking you might want more financial independence. This was a lie, but it was a convincing lie. So when you took what you thought was my card information, you were actually accessing your own account. And when you spent $74,000 in Paris, you were spending your own money. 74,000? David, that's impossible. I couldn't have spent that much. I pulled out a folder of printed bank statements and handed them to her. Actually, you spent $74,394.67. I have all the receipts. Jessica flipped through the papers, her hands shaking. David, this has to be a mistake. I thought I was using your money. Why would you think that? Because, because I took your card information. So you admit you stole my card information? I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. Without asking? David, we're married. Married couples share finances. Not without discussing it first. And definitely not by sneaking around and taking card information while someone is sleeping. Jessica was starting to panic. David, what are you saying? I'm saying you committed theft, Jessica. You took financial information that didn't belong to you, used it to access an account without permission, and spent money that you had no right to spend. But it was my own account, which you accessed by stealing someone else's card information. The method matters, Jessica. She stared at me, finally beginning to understand the situation she was in. David, this is insane. You're making this sound like I'm some kind of criminal. You committed credit card fraud, identity theft, and financial deception. In most states, that's classified as felony theft. David, stop. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. I pulled out another folder, this one containing printed emails and legal documents. Jessica, while you were in Paris buying handbags and staying in five-star hotels, I was meeting with a divorce attorney and filing a police report. A police report? For financial crimes. The bank has already flagged your account for fraud investigation. They want to know how you accessed card information that didn't belong to you. David, please. This is a misunderstanding. No, this is a crime, and it's documented. I spread out more papers on the kitchen table. Screenshots of her adding herself to my account. Photos of her going through my wallet. Bank records showing the unauthorized transactions. I've been documenting your behavior for months, Jessica. The secretive phone calls, the financial manipulation, the unauthorized access to my accounts. I have everything. Jessica sat down heavily in one of our kitchen chairs, staring at the evidence spread across the table. David, what do you want from me? I want you to understand the situation you're in. Which is what? You've committed multiple felonies, you're facing a fraud investigation, and you've spent money you don't have from an account that's now overdrawn by nearly $1,000. What does that mean? It means you owe the bank money. It means your credit is ruined. It means you're facing potential criminal charges. David, you can fix this. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding. Why would I do that? Because you love me. I looked at my wife sitting across from me, surrounded by luxury goods she'd bought with stolen money, asking me to lie to protect her from the consequences of her own actions. Jessica, do you love me? Of course I love you. Then why did you steal from me? I didn't steal from you. I was just trying to do something nice for myself. With money you took without permission. David, we're married. Your money is my money. No, it's not. Marriage doesn't give you the right to commit fraud. Jessica started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration and fear. David, what are you going to do? I'm going to let the legal system handle this. What does that mean? It means you need to find yourself a criminal defense attorney. David, please, I'll pay the money back. With what money? You're unemployed and in debt. I'll get a job. I'll work extra hours. I'll do whatever it takes. Jessica, it's too late for that. It's not too late. We can fix this. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter where I'd left one final document. Jessica, I filed for divorce yesterday. I handed her the papers. You've been served. The next 3 weeks were the most surreal of my life. Jessica hired a lawyer with money she borrowed from her parents, but the legal situation was complicated. She'd technically stolen card information to access her own account, which created a weird gray area that prosecutors weren't sure how to handle. The morning after I'd served her divorce papers, my phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Jessica's mother. David, what is going on? Jessica called us crying, saying something about police reports and fraud charges. Mrs. Patterson, Jessica used stolen card information to access a bank account and spent $74,000 without authorization. Stolen card information? David, you're her husband. Surely this is just a misunderstanding. She took photos of my debit card while I was sleeping and used that information to drain what she thought was my savings account. But you're married. Married couples share money. Not like this, Mrs. Patterson. Not by stealing someone's financial information and spending money without their knowledge or consent. David, Jessica says you're trying to have her arrested. Surely you don't want to see your own wife in jail. Mrs. Patterson, Jessica committed a crime. Multiple crimes, actually. I didn't make her do that. But you could make this go away, couldn't you? You could tell the police it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was theft. David, please, think about what you're doing to our family, to Jessica's future. I am thinking about it. That's why I'm not covering for her anymore. The conversation went on for another 20 minutes, with Mrs. Patterson alternating between pleading, threatening, and trying to guilt me into dropping the charges. It was clear where Jessica had learned her manipulation tactics. 2 days later, Jessica's father called. David, this is Tom Patterson. I think we need to have a man-to-man conversation. Hello, Mr. Patterson. David, I've been married for 38 years. I know that marriages go through rough patches, but this seems excessive. Stealing $74,000 is excessive, yes? But David, from what I understand, the money came from an account with Jessica's name on it. How is that theft? Because she used stolen card information to access it. The method of access is what makes it fraud. David, come on. You're both adults. You're both educated people. Surely you can work this out without involving lawyers and police? Mr. Patterson, what would you do if Mrs. Patterson secretly took your credit card information, drained your savings, and flew to Europe for a shopping spree? Well, that's different. How is it different? Laura would never do something like that. I thought Jessica would never do something like that either. David, Jessica made a mistake. A big mistake, yes, but people make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Mr. Patterson. This was a planned crime that she worked on for months. Months? She added herself to my bank account without my knowledge 3 months ago. She's been planning this for a long time. There was a long pause. David, what do you want? What would it take for you to make this go away? I want Jessica to take responsibility for her actions. What does that mean? It means acknowledging that she committed fraud. It means paying back the money she stole. It means accepting the consequences of her choices. And if she does that, then we can discuss a settlement that doesn't involve criminal charges. But Jessica wasn't interested in taking responsibility. 2 days after her father's call, I received a letter from Jessica's attorney. She was claiming that I had given her permission to use the account, that the money was marital property, and that I was using false criminal charges to gain advantage in the divorce proceedings. The letter also included a countersuit for emotional distress, claiming that I had deliberately entrapped Jessica by leaving accessible card information, and that my actions had caused her severe psychological trauma. I forwarded the letter to my attorney. David, this is desperation, Sarah Mitchell told me when we met to discuss Jessica's response. She's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Can she actually claim that I entrapped her? She can claim anything she wants. Proving it is a different matter. David, you documented everything. You have evidence that she accessed your accounts without permission, that she stole card information, that she lied about the purpose of the spending. What about her claim that I gave her permission? Do you have any evidence that you gave her permission to spend $74,000 on a luxury vacation? Of course not. Then it's her word against the evidence, and the evidence is overwhelming. But the divorce was straightforward. Mr. Chen, you have an excellent case for financial misconduct, my attorney Sarah Mitchell told me during one of our meetings. Your wife accessed financial accounts through fraudulent means and spent money without authorization. That's grounds for divorce in any state. What about the money she spent? Since it was technically from an account in her name, she's responsible for the debt. The bank is treating it as an overdraft situation, but they're also investigating how she obtained the card information. So I won't get the money back? You don't need the money back. The real savings were never touched. Sarah was right. While Jessica had been spending $74,000 of her own money in Paris, our actual savings, $45,000 in an account she knew nothing about, had been sitting safely in a different bank. Mr. Chen, can I ask you something personal? Sure. How long were you planning this? I wasn't planning anything. I was just preparing for the possibility that Jessica might do something financially destructive. You set up a decoy account and moved your real money to safety. That's not preparation, that's strategy. Call it whatever you want. It worked. And it had worked perfectly. Jessica had stolen exactly what I'd expected her to steal, spent exactly what I'd expected her to spend, and created exactly the legal situation I'd expected her to create. The only surprise was how completely she'd fallen for it. The legal proceedings dragged on for weeks. Jessica's attorney kept filing motions to dismiss the fraud charges, claiming that the prosecution was vindictive and that the evidence was insufficient. Each motion was denied, but each one cost Jessica more money in legal fees. Meanwhile, the bank's internal investigation was uncovering more evidence of Jessica's deception. They found records of her accessing my online banking account from her phone, logs of her using my device to add herself as an authorized user, and transaction histories that showed a clear pattern of unauthorized access. Mr. Chen, the bank's fraud investigator, called me one afternoon. We've completed our internal review, and we're recommending that this case be referred to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. What does that mean? It means the bank believes your wife committed felony fraud and wants to see her prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Even though the account was technically in her name, the account ownership doesn't matter. What matters is how she obtained access to the account information. Using stolen card details to access any account, even your own, is still fraud. That afternoon, I got another call from Jessica. David, please, you have to stop this. Stop what? The bank wants to press criminal charges. My lawyer says I could face up to 5 years in prison. Jessica, that's not my decision. That's between you and the legal system. But you could ask them to drop it. You could tell them you don't want to prosecute. Why would I do that? Because I'm your wife. Because you promised to love me for better or worse. You broke those promises when you stole from me. I didn't steal from you. I used money from my own account. Money you accessed by committing fraud. David, please, I'm begging you, I'll do anything. Anything? Yes, anything. Admit what you did. Publicly. Apologize to me, to your parents, to everyone who's been affected by this. Take full responsibility. I can't do that. Why not? Because it would ruin my reputation. Jessica, your reputation is already ruined. The question is whether you want to make it worse by continuing to lie. I'm not lying. You're lying to yourself if you think this is anyone's fault but yours. 3 weeks after Jessica returned from Paris, we had what would be our final, face-to-face conversation before the divorce proceedings began in earnest. David, I need to ask you something, Jessica said during one of our last conversations before the divorce was finalized. We were meeting at a coffee shop to discuss the division of assets, which was simple since she didn't have any assets left to divide. What? Did you plan this whole thing? Plan what? The account, the money, letting me take it. Did you want me to steal from you? I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife across the small table. She'd lost weight, looked tired, seemed smaller somehow. The confidence and arrogance she'd displayed after returning from Paris were gone, replaced by something that looked like defeat. Her designer clothes from the Paris trip had been replaced by discount store outfits. The Hermes scarf she'd been so proud of was nowhere to be seen. Probably sold to pay for her legal fees. Jessica, I didn't make you steal from me. But you made it possible. I made it easy. There's a difference. Why? Because I wanted to know who you really were. And now you know. Now I know. Jessica was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. The coffee shop was busy around us, full of people living their normal lives, unaware of the drama playing out at our corner table. David, I never meant for it to happen like this. How did you mean for it to happen? I thought I thought if I could just have one amazing experience, 1 week of living the life I wanted, maybe I could come back and be happy with our regular life. So you decided to steal $74,000. I thought it was your money. I thought you could afford it. I couldn't afford it, Jessica. Nobody can afford to have their life savings stolen. But you said the account was mine. The account was yours. The method you used to access it wasn't. David, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. Can you ever forgive me? I thought about that question for a long time. Could I forgive someone who'd planned for months to rob me? Someone who'd stolen my card information while I slept, drained what she thought was my life savings, and then come home bragging about her luxury vacation? Jessica, forgiveness is complicated. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. David, what if I could make this right? What if I could pay back every penny? With what money? You're unemployed, in debt, and facing criminal charges. I could get a job. I could work multiple jobs. I could sell everything I bought in Paris. Jessica, you already sold most of it to pay your legal fees. Then I'll find another way. I'll borrow money from my parents. Your parents have already spent their retirement savings on your legal bills. David, please. There has to be something I can do. I looked at her sitting across from me, this woman who'd been my wife for 8 years, who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my daily life, and I realized that I felt nothing. Not anger, not love, not even pity, just nothing. Jessica, the time for fixing this was before you decided to steal from me, before you planned your trip to Paris, before you came home bragging about your expensive vacation. But I can change. I can be different. You are different. You're different than the woman I married. The woman I married would never have done what you did. People make mistakes, David. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. A series of choices. You chose to become obsessed with luxury. You chose to resent our life together. You chose to steal my card information. You chose to drain the account. You chose to lie about it. Every step of the way, you chose this. Jessica started crying then, but they weren't the manipulative tears I'd seen so often in recent months. These were tears of genuine despair, the tears of someone who finally understood what they'd lost. David, I loved you. I still love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have stolen from me. I didn't think of it as stealing. What did you think of it as? I thought of it as taking what I deserved. What you deserved. David, I worked too. I contributed to our marriage. I thought I deserved to enjoy some of the money we'd saved. $74,000 worth of enjoyment? I got carried away. Once I was in Paris, once I was living that life, I couldn't stop myself. Because you were spending someone else's money. Because I was living the life I'd always dreamed of. A life funded by theft. I know that now. But David, it was like I was finally the person I was supposed to be. Confident, sophisticated, able to afford beautiful things. You were never that person, Jessica. That was just an expensive costume. I know, and now I've lost everything. Yes, you have.